Hello, Moon Jelly Kevin here, and today I'm going to be talking about SNK versus Capcom, the match of the Millennium. Also known to some people as the match of the Millennium, SNK versus Capcom. Now, it's been 20-something years, folks, and I'm not too sure what's the right order that you should be saying the name of this game, but what I do know for sure, feel free to fix me in the comments. Be like, you do know it's the match of the Millennium. What I do know for sure, folks, is that this is a badass, fantastic, ass-kicking game that you should definitely go pick up. Released in 1999, developed by Dimps, who would go on to work on the Street Fighter 4 series. This game is now 22 years old. It's old enough to buy itself a beer, old enough to chug that beer, and celebrate its own existence, because it's coming back. It's back, baby, and it's here to stay. It's SNK versus Capcom Match of the Millennium. It's coming back, like I said, on February 17th, 2021, Pacific Standard Time. So that's going to be a great day to celebrate. I've actually had Capcom and SNK in my mind. I've been playing Capcom versus SNK 2, Mark of the Millennium, which is the game of my youth that I feel a lot of my friends and I would gather around and play. Actually picked up recently a Hori Real Arcade Pro Stick 2 to play Capcom versus SNK 2. But, that's a lot of twos. But with the news that SNK versus Capcom is coming out, I'm going to have to put this episode on the back burner, so I will eventually talk about my this game and my memories of it. But today we're talking about SNK versus Capcom, their first one. We're giving love to this guy, which you should definitely pick up. I'm going to talk about why you should pick it up, as well as my own personal history with this game. So like I said, here we go. We have over here my box for the game, which I picked up at Babbage's when it was closing. Old game store chain, eventually eaten up by GameStop. Babbage's was cool, though, because they had everything. They had, like, PC games and, back when PC games used to be in big boxes, and console games. It's the inside. And I'm pretty sure this is where the price tag went, but now it is just a... Now it's just a scar on my box. I think actually for the Japanese and European, I don't know if I'm getting this right, but I've seen it before. They actually have clamshell cases that can take a serious beating. Us Americans only got this really flimsy box that degrades over time. And as a guy who's moved quite a bit in the past 2 years, it's not holding up so well. But I still love it anyways because it's my copy and I'm not selling it. Anyways, so here we go. Here is the manual. I don't know if you guys can see that. Oh, it's the right way to flip this. I guess there's no real good way to flip this. But you got some nice art over here, you know. It's kind of scratchy, kind of sketchy. It's kind of funny because, like, when I think about it, even Dimps, when they were working on Street Fighter 4, they went on that kind of, like, look, too, where, you know, it's kind of like a sketchy look. But, yeah. Very chibi. And you get your classic characters from both Capcom and SNK. Let me just show you another page, right? So yeah, what is this game? Like I said, it's a classic 2D fighter game. And it was originally released on the Neo Geo Pocket Color. And it's going to be cool because, like I said, it's being released on the Switch, which is going to have the advantage of having a backlit screen. Now, you guys can see there are mods to mod your Neo Geo Pocket Color to have a black backlit screen. But by default, it is not backlit. And it's kind of hard to see. Now, what is the advantage of playing it on this, though, however? Well, you get that clicky stick. And this thing is super responsive and super easy to play. I know that on the Switch, they have re-released other Neo Geo Pocket Color games. And I don't know how well responsive it is. I haven't tried them out for myself, but this stick is amazing. Like, it actually works really well. It's very responsive. So I think that is something you're going to lose when you play the Switch version, but you do get the benefit of it not looking like, you know, you could play it at night if you want to. You just can't do that with this Neo Geo Pocket Color version. And yeah, as you guys can see, I actually have my copy of my game right there. So yeah, to give you guys some backstory, some history of this game. This again is the very first in the Capcom versus SNK or SNK versus Capcom series. Originally, like myself, I grew up in the 90s. I played a lot of arcade games. When it came to the arcade, like, there's certain games you always think of as of like games of your youth. Like when it comes to racing games, I always think of Cruising USA or Daytona USA. When it comes to shooting games, with your guns, I think of Time Crisis or Police Trainer. When it comes to shooters, I think of Darius. And actually, there's a lot of shooter games I can think of. But when it comes to fighting games, sure, you had your 3D fighters, which a lot of us were trying to evolve and adapt and play. So you had your Virtua Fighter and you had your Tekken. But for a lot of us who were introduced to the fighting genre with 2D fighting games, there were 3 games that were king. All right. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to discredit any other games. I'm not saying Killer Instinct was not well loved. Killer Instinct was super loved. But when it came to the 3 fighting games that most people played, it was Mortal Kombat, and then you either played some sort of Capcom fighter or a SNK fighter. When it comes to SNK fighters, you think of things like Street Fighter, obviously. When I was a kid, you saw Champion Edition, Hyper Fighting, Super Turbo, very rarely. But more of the Alpha series, Alpha 2, Alpha 3. And they started to do crossover games, which we'll talk about in a bit. When it came to SNK, you think of things like Fatal Fury, Samurai Showdown. You think of Art of Fighting, which you would see in that red MVS cab back in the day. And those cabs were everywhere. So you could play them wherever. You could play your Metal Slugs and your Neo Turf Masters. And you could also play things like I said, those classic fighting games. I personally, when I first started ever playing a SNK fighter, I started with King of Fighters 96, as well as Fatal Fury Special. Like, those are the 2 games that I remember were the first ones I ever played. But so this was the game where they crossover. They were starting to do crossover games. Capcom started the trend with, X-Men versus Street Fighter, or Marvel versus Street Fighter. But just in general, like the crossover, the versus thing was starting to come in vogue. We had the Alien versus Predator comic and arcade game. And, a few years later in the 2000s, we'd have like other things where it's like brand versus brand. So this was kind of a thing that was a trend that was happening around the time, that late 90s, early 2000s. And so in this game, it is the first one of the series starting on this console, which wasn't really a huge big hit in America. So you have your, like I said, you have your SNK fighters, mostly people from the King of Fighters series, which in itself was like a crossover already. And then you have your Samurai Showdown characters. So you would get Homaru and Nakaruru, as well as, like over here you have Mai, Terry, Iori, and Kyo. But on the Capcom side was the part that I feel some people were a little bit disappointed with, because the Capcom side was just basically Street Fighter. And why did they not just call this King of Fighters versus Street Fighter? I don't know. It was mostly Street Fighter. Now, obviously, you could see over here on the screen, they did put Morrigan for all the thirsty boys. Morrigan is in there, but to be fair, Morrigan was in all the crossover games because, they know. If SNK people were like, no buy, I'm sure people in Capcom, they want their Morrigan in there. They didn't bother to redraw her, but, whatever. But she is redrawn in this game, which is very cool. And I first found out about SNK vs. Capcom through this magazine called Pocket Gamer Magazine. Now, it is the 90s. People are starting to have computers. You got to understand, people did not have... having a PC at home was not common yet. And my family wanted to get a PC, so we went to a place called Fry's Electronics. And no, they didn't buy me the game. That's not what happened. But they did buy me this magazine, and they told me to have fun with this. So I would flip through this magazine. I bought it because I wanted Pokemon Gold and Silver information as much as possible. But what did I leave the magazine thinking about? I remembered thinking about Metal Gear, because I thought that was really cool. And I thought about the Neo Geo Pocket Color, which you could even see on the cover over here, is barely represented on the top middle. It's funny because I was trying to find and hunt down this magazine. I've been moving, so wasn't able to find my actual copy. Maybe someday I'll flip through it and we'll do a whole episode on that. But yeah, I remember the 90s girl with the blue tank top and the pigtails and stuff. So yeah, like I said, originally I read about this game in here, found out about SNK versus Capcom doing a crossover, and it blew my mind. As a guy who just loved both fighting game franchises, like this was nuts. All right, you played both games, and I had that in the back of my head because you got to understand that they're very similar. Their type of games, they even evolved very similar, and you could even argue it's because a lot of the SNK staff back in the day, at least as far as I know, for the Fatal Fury one, and I'm sure even, there was a lot of talent exchange. You had a lot of people that worked for both companies at some point. The first Fatal Fury game was created by or made by the same people that worked on the very first Street Fighter. So in a way, they were cousins already. And like I said, those games just kept getting better and better. And by the late 90s, both SNK and Capcom had fighting games that controlled so well that it was only a matter of time where it's like peanut butter and jelly. It just worked so well to bring both franchises together. So to show you guys some gameplay, I'm actually going to be just showing some video footage from World of Longplays gameplay. And you guys can see we have Ryu going up against Geese. And here's the cool thing about this game. This game actually kind of spoiled us because when it comes to this game, they gave us so much in this small package that the other games, like this Capcom versus SNK, the follow-up over here, and Capcom versus SNK 2, and SVC Chaos, which I also do have, but I forgot I forgot about that game, which is so bad to say. But yeah, it's over there in my shelf. They give you so much in this game that I feel that if you're on the fence, should I pick up this game for my Nintendo Switch on coming up on February 17th? It should not even be a question. There is a lot to do in this game. If you grew up loving 90s Capcom SNK, I mean, granted, the people you get to play as are mostly King of Fighters characters and Street Fighter characters, but there are fun little mini games in here that make references to Metal Slug, Ghost and Goblins, Darkstalkers, I'm trying to think of what else, more Samurai Showdown. There is just so much that celebrates both companies in this game that I feel that not even these later games were able to replicate. So that's something you could enjoy on, like I said, on a casual level, on a hardcore level. There's a lot to unlock. There's things to unlock like moves. And yeah, it's just a complete package. The music itself is very good for what it is. I know people complain that the sound chip is not so good on the Neo Geo, but they did a good job replicating all these songs from way back when. And it makes references and callbacks. Like I said, it's classic themes that you would hear on those wonderful 90s Golden Age Capcom and SNK fighters. The gameplay itself, you can see this World of Longplays right here is playing a single-player run, as Ryu, but it doesn't always just have to be a single-player run. You actually have tag mode, where you could play it kind of like a Marvel Versus series, where you could actually play two people and tag out. And you could also play team mode, which is more in line with, I want to say, the King of Fighters series. Beyond that, you could even play in different styles. You have average, counter, and rush. Off the top of my head, one of them is more like Street Fighter. The other one is more like, I want to say more like Samurai Showdown. And then you also have rush mode, which is more like the Darkstalker series. You get things like chain combos. So yeah, as you guys can see, just from me talking about it, there is a lot in this game. Like, I'm sure that, it can't cost more than $20. I think if it's like anything else, it's going to cost maybe like $11 to $14. And there is a lot in this game to love. There's a lot to enjoy. And, I think even if you're casually into fighting games, you're not really that big into it. There's that the game itself is so solid and it holds up. And they did it so well to a point where, like I said, the stick is so good. I'm hoping the port of the Switch is good as well. And then they did it where it's like you have your punches, you have your kicks. If you just tap it, you get your lights. If you hold it, you get your heavies. And I can't stress it enough. It just works so well. So yeah, that's me talking, rambling about SNK versus Capcom, the match of the Millennium, my memories of this game, why you should pick it up. Like I said, you're getting so much value playing this game. And yeah, I'm hoping that this is a situation where it is a possibility where you are voting with your dollar. Now, us fans have been waiting for years. We're talking like 20 years we've been waiting for decades, to make it sound more grander, for a Capcom versus SNK 3. And yes, I understand that the Neo Geo Pocket Color game is developed by SNK, and SNK is probably the ones who are releasing this, and I mean they definitely are the ones who are releasing this. But there had to have been some sort of agreement before there had to have been an agreement with Capcom and SNK for them to put out this game now. Because otherwise, it's like, why did they not release this earlier? What's going on now that is leading to this partnership being a thing again? So I want you guys to go forth and show to both Capcom and SNK that we are still interested in this game in some way, shape, or form. Pick this up on the 17th. Vote with your dollar. Let them know that we want to see this franchise continue. And even if you do not, even if this leads to nothing, you are still picking up a fantastic game that wasn't so readily available before. Like I said, it was only available on this Neo Geo Pocket Color. Okay, so that is my ramblings and rants on SNK versus Capcom, the original, the Neo Geo Pocket Color classic. Just messing up my words right now. So that's how excited I am. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Have you played this game? Are you going to go pick this up? The answer is yes, I am going to go pick this up. And yeah, let me know what you guys think about this. And hopefully this will lead to bigger and better things. All right? Thank you so much for watching and have a wonderful... Thank you so much for watching and have a wonderful day. I'm so excited. Messing up my words. Bye!